Well, I think we might get underway. What do we say? Okay, well, welcome, folks, to our countdown to the Nestle Fitness Malaysia Women Marathon. And tonight we're talking about the final 10 days to success. We're going to take you through day by day on the tried and proven tips and actions you can take to make sure that all that hard training you've done pays off and you have a wonderful, wonderful race day on the 7th of April. So I'm Andrew, and I'm here with Sue. How again, Sue?
Going very well and very excited about being into the 10 final countdown days to the marathon.
And welcome Karen too, our wonderful race director. How are you, Karen?
Thank you for inviting me again to be part of this webinar. Something exciting, something new over this part of the world, and we are excited to be sharing our tips as well with all the listeners and the runners that will be coming in for the Nestle Fitness Malaysian Women Marathon.
And so, just to before we get right into it, our agenda for tonight, we're just doing a little bit of an introduction. We're going to then work through day by day with the 10-day countdown, and we're going to then open up for any other questions and answers which we haven't done. And then just a quick mention as closing, we've got 2 more webinars in the series. So we were here last week with Karen, really learning all about the Malaysia Women Marathon. We looked at the course, we looked at the pre-events and all those sorts of things, and that link is available on the Facebook page if people didn't see that and they want to go back and watch that. Tonight it's really is zeroing in on the race, getting ready for it.
Yep, from a runner's perspective of what you need to be ready to be in the best shape possible on race day.
So this is for all events, whether you're doing the fun run, the half marathon or the marathon. And of course, if you're running the longer of those two, then you're probably going to be, for example, carbo loading a bit more than if you're doing the 8K. But I reckon 95% of what we're going to talk about applies at all 3 distances and sets you up to be successful in your event. So it doesn't matter which event you're doing, we've got hopefully lots of good ideas for you this evening. Just a bit about us, I suppose, Sue.
Well, we are runners primarily. We're marathon runners. We're also partner runners. We run side by side. No matter what happens out there on the course, we will finish side by side. We also try to help other runners and families get running. We help corporate groups and running groups as well as offering some advice or any assistance we can offer to race directors such as Karen.
Well said. And of course, there's a nice picture of our book there. That was from, what was it, 8 marathons in 8 countries in 8 weeks with that one. And so, just a little bit about the way the webinar works. I'm Andrew, as you can probably tell, and I'm, in essence, the pilot or the bus driver. So I'm the one who's clicking away at the technology and hoping that everything works if I hit the right buttons. Sue is more the tour guide. She'll be talking you through a lot of the points. I'll chip in when I can. And of course, we've got Karen to tell us about sponsors and also chip in with her advice as we go through and help us with all the questions. So that's
and Karen's the cheerleader.
And so,
and Karen's the cheerleader.
And so, just in case anybody doesn't know, Karen is the inspiration behind why we're here, and has just been working tirelessly for some incredible amount of time to bring this together, and everybody who's entered and is going to have a wonderful day must be incredibly grateful for all the great work you've done, Karen. So maybe just before we launch into it, anything you would like to say at this point?
Not really. Let's get over with the tips first and build up the hype, and everybody gets really working out to go for a great run, and then we talk something a little bit later at the end.
Okay,
about them.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I will ask you though, just to give us a quick mention of the sponsors, because again,
that's great.
Aside from yourself, the sponsors are the other
Very
people
important.
that make it possible.
Yeah, make it all happen.
Exactly. Nestle Fitness being the title sponsor, gearing all up to meet all of us there on the race day. We've got Selangor Tourism who are here to help us on the tourism arrangement, the ground arrangements, and we've got Capital FM, a women radio channel. Venue sponsors ICD. We've got Air Asia coming in, chipping in with winning prizes. We've got Power Bar, New Balance as our apparel, Celebrity Fitness as our gym instructors, Banana Boat, and we've got Sunto actually. If it's not somewhere around here, we've got Sunto watches to contribute to our winning prizes as well.
I think they might be on the other banner, which we'll.
The banner, yeah, that's right.
Yes. Okay, thanks, Karen. So just as a little bit of setting the scene, the partner running approach is really, I suppose, it looks at all of the successful components of running. Now, often when we think about running, we think about our training, and then we think about lacing up our shoes and then going out and running. So the training, the pre-event, and the event. But successful running, and particularly successful running over many years and getting all of the benefits from not just our fitness, but the energy that comes to us being successful in the rest of the life, involves a little bit more. So it's more than just those actions. It's being sustainable. So it's the essentials, the equipment, the food, the things which we take in. There's no point being a runner if you're going to be injured all the time. So being injury-free is very important. And ASI is the last piece of this puzzle, is being able to recover, not just after each training run, but after each event, so that you can build up. So those three components really come into play. And of course, the other three aspects is really, what's your goal? Why are you running? What's it going to do for you? So in our case, running keeps us fit and healthy. It's great for our marriage. It's great for everything we do in life. So we focus on little goals like crossing the line in Malaysia in a few weeks' time, but also how that links to making everything we do in life better. Travel, whether it's around the corner to an event or into the next country or the other side of the world. Lots of exciting opportunities with running, and we like to improve, we like to learn, we like to get better at it. And it is one of the exciting things about running, is that we can always improve and learn more. So when we put all this together, we can actually build ourselves a nice, successful approach to running that helps us grow, it helps us take action, and it helps us sustain that over time. And the last little piece there is really our goals, our training, and our essentials is our foundation. The way we plan our travel, we get ready for our events and we prepare ourselves injury-free. That's our preparation phase. And then when we go out and we complete our events and then we recover, that's all about the results. So tonight, the 10-day countdown brings in basically all of these elements to enable us not just to have a great run in 2 weeks' time, but to keep running for many, many years to come. So that's the overarching, I suppose, perspective from where we come from. So you're going to take us quickly through the 10 days, because each day has got a bit of a theme.
Yes, the 10 days out, and it's time to have a shoe check primarily, also to check your race details. Day 9, travel confirmation, just make sure that you've got your travel arrangements organised for getting to Shah Alam in this case. Day 8, getting a picture of success in your mind of what it's going to look like for you crossing the line and what it's going to mean. Day 7, a week out from the big day, and it's dress rehearsal day. Day 6 out, and it's preparing scenarios of what might happen and what you're going to do and the strategies that you can use. Day 5 is all about relaxation. Day 4 is to travel and get to your event maybe, but also to just chill and relax. Day 3 out is to commence carbo loading. Day 2 is the big snooze, the day to get your best sleep. And day 1 out, the day before, your final preparation for your race day. And of course, 0 day, the bullseye, it is race day.
So we have a bit of a theme for each day that goes through, but the underlying, one of the underlying premises here is that there is no training effect in the last 2 weeks. So once we get inside the 2 week mark, no no more long runs from the perspective of helping you in the event. It's only going to make you more fatigued, and it's going to take more than 2 weeks to impact on your running. So we're into taper. No more extra training is going to help, but at the same time, our final preparation can either significantly improve or undermine our performance. So if we don't eat well, if we don't prepare our clothes, if we don't get all the little details in place, we can actually undo all that good work.
Or if we overtrain.
Or, yes, going out and doing some additional training. So the principles there are that in the last 2 weeks, I've just gone ahead. In the last 2 weeks, we're tapering and we're focusing on our preparation as opposed to doing a lot more training. And one of the premises which I suppose sets us up for everything we're going to talk about tonight is that if you've established a routine, and in many ways most of you will have, now's not the time to start changing your routine. So the shoes that you've been wearing in your training, the food that you've been eating, if you've been practicing all those things, anything that we say tonight is to think about for the next race, not for this one. Don't change what's been working in these last 2 weeks. Tonight is about just learning some new things, some fine tuning, and doing some things which you might not have been planning to do, answering any questions. But this isn't. You might hear something tonight and you go, "Oh, that's very different to what I've been doing." Well, if what you've been doing has been working, don't change it the next 2 weeks. Think about for your next race after this one. So, as we say, your routine really rocks. It gets you the results. So, day 10.
That brings us to day 10, and it is Thursday, and it's time to check your race details and your shoes. Just check with the shoes. It's the last day that you could possibly buy new shoes and have a chance to break them in and to make sure that they're not going to cause any blisters or hot spots on your feet.
Sue, can I say something here?
Please do, Karen.
Do you hear me? Okay. So
Yep.
This is something that I've gone through as an experience. If you've been training with this pair of shoes, and you know it's slightly worn out, and if you want to continue wearing this shoe for the race day, 2 weeks is the last time frame to get that new pair of shoe. But try to get the same pair of shoes that you've been training on. Don't get something new. Don't get a different model, and you're gonna have to start training with that pair of shoes again. Well, at least with the model that you've been wearing, you know how you're gonna react and how you're gonna perform with that pair of shoes. So stick to the same model of shoes that you have been training on.
That's a great tip, and that's a good example of when we talked about your sticking to your routine. So you wouldn't change the model of shoe. You would, as Karen has just said, you would stick to the model of shoe you've been wearing, but you might, if you're used to that shoe, you might, in the last 2 weeks, move into a new pair of the same model, but as Karen said, definitely not a different sort of shoe.
Definitely not a different sort of shoe.
Yeah.
Check all the race details, and that means making sure that you know the start time, that you know how long it's going to take you to get to the race start, what time plan that you want to get there, if you can drop a gear bag off, just all of those details about the course, about where your drink stops are going to be, just all of the details to do with the race itself.
Make sure you've entered.
Well, and to make sure you've entered, good heavens.
Every now
Yes.
and then we forget.
Yes.
Oh dear. Yeah, and a race kit. Come and collect the race kits.
So when you've entered, you'll have your details. That's the confirmation you've entered, and so that will then.
That's right.
Sometimes you need to print that, take that along. This is particularly for those of us who are coming from outside of Malaysia or are travelling and need to make sure you've got your bag packed. If you live close by, well, you can print this out and get ready a few days later. But for those of us that are travelling, you need to get this done now.
And you got to get your passports when you come and collect your race kit as well, if you're coming from overseas.
There you go. Now, this is a good time to book your race week massage. For those of us that like a massage, and if you are used to having massage, this is the time to get it booked and organised. A lot of things, once again, if it's not something that you're used to doing, if it's not part of your routine, maybe not add it in straight away. But if it's something that you've been regularly having, just make sure you can get the day and the time organised for your massage. And the next one is to prepare your race splits. Now, a lot of us like to have written down the times that we would like to be going through different kilometre markings, and they're called your race splits. Usually they're maybe 5 kilometres apart, and as in this picture shows, you can carry them on your wrist as a quick and handy check to see what time you're going through these different distances.
Now, that might sound like, where do I get one of those? Well,
Yes.
here's where you get one of those. You can go to this website at marathonguide.com, Fitness Calcs Pace Band Creator, and you can actually put in what time you're hoping to run your race, and it'll work it all out for you. And it'll then print out on a piece of paper, which you can then cut up, and you can actually make your own wristband, the whole thing.
Yep.
So if you're going to run, say 2.5 hours for the half marathon, you could put that in, and you want it in miles or kilometres, you could do it whichever way you like, and print out your own little thing. So whether you're doing the fun run for 8, the half marathon, or the marathon, you can make your own pace band to keep your little times there. So it's not for everybody, but it's a handy little thing to keep you on track.
Because sometimes the mind does get a little bit, if you're trying to check those numbers on your watch, it's sometimes hard to calculate them in your mind.
And another little tip on that is I often suggest to people that you make 2. So let's say I was going to, I think in our case, if we had a really good race, we might run the marathon in 3 hours 45. If it's hot, we take a few photos and we talk to people on the way, then it might be 4 hours. So what I would do with this, I would print out 2. I have my 3:45, which I might start running for, and then I have my 4. So if I get a bit slower along the way, I can see between the 2. I don't get confused. So you could make 2 and put them around your wrist, or you could keep one in your little pocket or something like that. So this is the day to do that. So what do you do on this day, Sue?
Well, it's the last day for a speed workout to try and stimulate a little bit of muscle growth and a muscle energy for your running. This is the last speed workout. And with diet, we're still maintaining a normal diet. We're not really changing too much at the moment. We may be increasing our carbohydrate, or the amount that we eat, by about 10%, and that's not a huge amount. And that doesn't mean eating more. It just means starting to put in a few more carbohydrate-based foods.
And one of my big tips too is then the hydration. Too often, and we'll talk about this a few times, people think the day before, I'm going to drink lots of water, I'm going to get my hydration up, and it's really hard to do it in a rush. So you really want to be getting into that, sipping on your water bottle for as much of those last 10 days as you can, and just building it up slowly. It's like watering your garden. If you tip a big bucket on it, it just runs off. But if you eke it out slowly, you get a nice
saturated. Yes.
So that's day 10.
Oh, Sue and Andrew, can I just ask a question here about carb loading? Because why is that we have to eat more carbohydrate? I mean, I've heard this before in the past, that there's an old school of thought that you from day 7 to day 4 before the race, you kind of starve yourself from carbohydrate, but from day 4 to day 1 day 1 before the race, you overeat on carbohydrate. It's just that your body is being depleted of carbohydrate, and then when you eat the carbohydrate again, it absorbs faster. Is there something that reacts to that? Does the body react to that?
I think the simple answer is for experienced runners who have done their distance several times. The idea of the depletion that you talked about is something to explore. For first timers, that's a bit tricky, and it's not something that we advise.
Okay, that's right.
It is a bit of an advanced approach, but there is some merit in that, and so it works really well for some people. For others, just as steady as she goes is also effective.
Yeah, and I think also that we've got to be careful, because we are still doing a small amount of training within that period, and you don't want to get to the stage where you
totally
running on
deplete
so
your carbohydrate.
low. Yes. So it's not something that we've actively practiced ourselves.
Okay, so day 9 is just getting your travel if you are someone coming from out of town. So confirm your your flights or your train or your car or your bus or however you're getting there. And even if you are local, it might be how you're going to get there with your ride on the day. Good, just work on a little bit of motivation. Maybe you read a running book, some blogs, some YouTube videos, whatever it might be, something just to get you thinking and get some inspiration.
See a running movie, all of those sort of things.
This is a day where you might rest, or maybe it's sort of up to a 45-minute run, no more than that. And because this is the Friday before, if you haven't been practicing your 2-night out meal, this is a good time to just practice the meal that you're going to eat, because this is one of the most important meals that you have in race week, not the night before the race, the night before the night before. So if you haven't been practicing that meal, this is sort of one of your main carbo loading preparing meals, this is a good night to practice that.
Yeah.
Again, a little bit of hydration to keep that moving along.
Saturday before the race, 8 days out, get a picture in your mind of what success is going to look like. Try and see if you can actually picture yourself in your mind crossing the line, and it might be for some people that they visualize themselves with that medal around their neck, or the cheering as they come to the finish line. And try and get that picture in your mind so that when things do get tough, you've got that picture that's going to motivate you along the way.
It could be the photo with your family, you've got your celebrating afterwards, whatever it might be.
Whatever it might be. It's also the day to purchase energy gels or the fuel that you're going to take with you out on the race course. You might even consider some cross-training, and we've talked about cross-training, I think, in last week's webinar a little bit, about whether it's bike, whether it's swimming, whether it's another form of exercise that doesn't use the same muscles in the same way as running. So that wouldn't be going on a treadmill to cross-train, for instance. And that is the training for that day, is the cross-training, or 45-minute run. And your diet, this is practice day again, and it's practicing your pre-race lunch and your pre-race dinner of what are you going to eat, what types of food are going to be comfortable in your stomach, making sure that everything is smooth and nothing upsets you. And again, hydration.
Okay, so day 7, this is the week out. It's your sort of your last Sunday run. And whilst you're doing a much shorter distance, in most cases, if you're going to do on race day, it's a good day to test all your clothes and all your gear. You might carry the same number of goos that you're going to take, or gels that you're going to take on race day. You're not going to eat them all, but you might actually carry them on that day so you know that they all fit and how it feels comfortable. So it's like a dress rehearsal. So ultimately, the best way to do this is to wake up and run at the same time as the race. Now, if you've been doing this in your training, you might not need to do it on this day. But if you haven't done a couple of runs on the same time that your event is at, it's a good idea to run at that time of the day to get used to it. It's a good thing to eat on this day the same food that you're going to eat 7 days later on race day. Again, just to...
And the pre-breakfast food, especially.
Yep, make sure that you're going to test all that so you know what's going to work for you.
And not get cramps in between while you're running because you've eaten the wrong food.
If you can,
definitely
run, do your action. Don't just wake up and prepare, but actually go out and run at the race time or very close to it. So again, your body's getting used to the whole routine, so it's not a shock the week after. You really, this is, as we said, this is your dress rehearsal. Whether it's
the dress rehearsal with yeah, exactly.
Wear the gear, so you're not heading out in new clothes, new socks, new shirts on race day. You're having one good practice run with your full outfit, all as it is.
Testing all of those chafing spots, you know that it's going to be safe.
And you're also practicing your recovery. What are you going to do afterwards to set yourself up? And this is really important this week because you want to get yourself into good condition, but also afterwards you want to recover as well as you can. So what are the little things you're going to do? What are you going to eat after your race a week later? What are you going to do to look after yourself? So it's for most people a 45 to 60 minute. For those that are a bit more experienced, certainly no more than 2 hours if you're a marathoner and is used to it. But around that hour is a good good amount of running for a week out, because it's just about freshening your legs to prepare. Every bit you save is going to pay off the week later. And again, it's that practice day. What do you, as Karen said, what are you going to eat the morning before the event? What are you going to eat afterwards for recovery? And again, hydration. You don't want to slip into dehydration. You want to be slowly, again, dripping away towards getting ready for the next week. So we're down to the last.
We're into the last week, and this is where we start to think about some of the things that might happen out on the course and what we're going to do if we do encounter those things. So it's a good idea to have a plan in your mind for all of the different scenarios or things that might happen during your marathon experience or your half marathon experience or your 8K.
And this is the simple things like, how are you going to go up the hills? How are you going to go through the drink stations? What are you going to do if you need to have a toilet or a bathroom break along the way? All the way through to the other extremes of, well, what if you get a headache? What if you get a cramp? What if you're not feeling well? What if you drop your sunglasses and you need sunglasses? So what are the things which can go wrong, and how will you deal with them?
And one more thing, Andrew, it's in Malaysia sometimes it gets to rainy season, so it's been known to rain sometime in April, so we should also prepare ourselves for the weather differences. It could rain on the race day, so if you're running, you might be experiencing something sluggish and wet in your shoes, just in case it rains.
That's a great tip. And if we're prepared for it, then it's less of a shock and we're able to deal with it. It's one of the ironies that if we allow for it to happen, it seems to happen less. But when it does happen, we just take it in our stride. So fine-tuning your race strategy. Again, making sure you're not going to start out too fast compared to what you've trained for. Being aware of the times you're going to run, how are you going to handle those hills, all of those bits and pieces that come to make up your strategy.
Even that, as we were discussing with the drink stations, like, are you going to walk through the drink stations to make sure that you do get enough fluid through each one, or are you going to try and go as fast as you can through them? And either way might work fine, but you need to have your race strategy in plan and in place.
Could I say something here? Since we're talking about drinks, Malaysia being in the situation where it's hot and warm, there's probably a tendency for people to drink too much or overdrink, they call it. And then the scientific name will be hyponatremia. So here's where I would like to say, sometimes when you think it's too hot and you try to drink too much, you may be experiencing what do you call a low sodium concentration to you in your blood if you drink too much during a run.
Yep. And another good tip to go with that is to try and mix up some of your drink stops to make sure that you take some electrolyte as well as some water, so it's not just all water.
All water,
as you go through
that's
the
right.
Stations.
Yeah, Carol, we have a question here. It's a fantastic question, and it's one that's right up your alley as the race director. And the question is, what's the right protocol if it rains heavily, and then sort of in brackets, if there's lightning during the race? So first of all, heavy downpour of rain during the race, what's your advice to people?
Well, if they like to run in the rain, we'll just carry on running. But having said that, if there's lightning and it's a bad thunderstorm, we would stop the run for a while till the rain subsides, and then we'll see if the time frame allows them to carry on to, if we're talking about the cutoff time. But if not, let's just go out and enjoy the run. I'm just bringing up the rain aspect. If not, it's normally in April, it's actually a very sunny and dry season. So it's just that I've just brought the issue up of rain.
Yep, and it's good. Again, it's good to be prepared and for people to understand that we expect our race directors to be mindful and have a plan for if the conditions do get to the point where it can be dangerous. And so
That's
if
right.
you have one of those lightning storms, there's a thing which we learnt when we ran the Disney Marathon many years ago. They have this crash to bang ratio of 6, basically
Flash to bang,
6
yes.
seconds. So if the gap between the lightning and the thunder is 6 seconds or less, then it's particularly dangerous. So as a tip for people, if they are out on the course, or out for a run one day, not so much during the event, but any day, if that flash to bang is less than 6, then you need to get
undercover.
In cover, yeah.
because it's getting dangerous. And so you can't expect the race director or anybody else to come from flying in on their sort of magic broom or something. If a storm comes from nowhere, you've got to think a bit yourself. So that 6 to 1 is a
number to be mindful of. Yeah.
We better keep moving along, but that's a great question, so thank you for that. We hope we sort of answered that one. Fine-tuning your race strategy, thinking about the different scenarios. So you're seeing yourself running strongly, seeing yourself crossing the line. You know, if it is wet, and I often do this, I imagine myself running strongly when it's a rainy day, and just keep on going. So thinking about all the things you're going to do to be successful, and then when it comes to the day, you'll then do it. If you are running with somebody else,
yes, confirm what your partner running details are, and that's whether you're going to start together, but you might separate during the race. If you're going to stay together, no matter what, just as long as these agreements are in place up front, there is no discussion, there is no argument, and everyone's happy on the day, which is what we want. And for training, we're looking at this stage a 30 to 45 minute run, maybe put a little bit of acceleration work, not flat out maximum sprinting, but just a little bit of speed work in there perhaps too. We're still maintaining our normal diet. We're not really adding too much more in at this stage, and we're keeping up our hydration as we go along. And now we are up to day 5, and this is starting to get a little bit closer towards race day, and we need to think about just chilling out and relaxing. This is a great day to have your massage 5 days out. If you are a music listener and you like to organise your playlist as you run along with an iPod, this is a great day to just take something a little bit less active and using up a little bit less energy, and work out what your playlist is going to be for your iPod as you run. Nice way to just sit down and chill. And this one is an interesting one. Clipping your toenails. We don't really like to leave clipping toenails to the last minute, to the night before, in case there's a little bit of a slip up and too much is cut off, and then we end up with a tender sore spot around the toe where it's been clipped too much. So our little recommendation is to actually go for the clip of the toenails a few days out, just in case you do make any over clipping, and then things have settled down by race day and your feet are happy.
So your run today?
The run today
could be a rest.
Again, pretty short. It might be 30 to 45 minutes, or it might be a rest. Why not? It is a chill out, relaxed day, so it might be a complete rest. Again, we're sort of just following pretty much a normal diet. We're not going too drastic with anything, and just keeping up a reasonable amount of hydration, making sure we're not getting dehydrated as we go through the day.
So day 4, if you're an out-of-town person, this is a good day to think about travelling in. And if you're a local person and the race is close by, as for lots of people who live around the whole Malaysia area, then it's a day to just chill out, be cruisy, go to work, do whatever you normally do, but don't put yourself under too much extra pressure, unless of course you're the race director running around like crazy getting ready at the last minute. So travelling if you're coming from out of town, business as usual if you're a local, and relaxing either way, setting yourself up to succeed. Again, it's depending on your training program, it's probably a 30-minute or a rest. You can't take all rests on these. Some days it's rest, some days it's run.
And probably you shouldn't take all runs too,
no,
because
exactly.
So other side of the coin, just because it says 30-minute run doesn't mean that it's everyday running. It's just depending on what your program is actually suggesting to you as the day to run.
It's mix it up with your diet. Just mix it up with your training and your rest. It's a normal diet day, and again, working on that hydration. And that was the last of the normal diet days.
Yes.
Because now we are ready to start loading up. Not overloading, just loading up. So
Yes, it's time to commence carbo loading, and that means, as we've suggested, not overloading, not taking that as a ticket to go out and start eating huge amounts of food, but to just start to think about the type of foods that you're eating that are more carbohydrate based. So rather than tucking into a meat or even too much of a protein based meal, that you're starting to think about adding in more rice, more pasta, more bread if that's your style of food, and starting to increase the composition there.
I love this photo. This is when we ran the Venice Marathon, and Italy is a good place for carbo loading.
Italy does have a lot of options, and some of them are listed here on the foods to eat. So with regards to the carbohydrate type foods that you might start to introduce to your diet here, there's the good old-fashioned toast and some different types of breads, and it's recommended that wholemeal breads and whole grain breads are actually going to stay in your system a little bit longer and provide you some nutritional value as well as the carbohydrate value. Along those lines, also muesli, yogurt, so dairy products can also be a good carbohydrate loading source as well. Baked potatoes are good. Sandwiches, sushi, risotto. Sushi meaning hand rolls, the ones that have rice with them, not just the sashimi, but the actual rice-based ones. Risotto, rice in itself, whether it's steamed rice, whether it's boiled rice, fried rice gets a little bit different, but generally steamed rice is great. All different types of pastas and noodles. Pizza, pancakes is a good one as well. We start to get into some fruits like bananas. Watermelon, not so high maybe in the carbohydrate, but a great one for a little bit more sugar and also fluid replenishment. Energy protein bars are great. Muesli bars, also very handy snack foods. And again, to get into some electrolyte as well as water as part of your hydration.
Now, the word of caution here, of course, is if you're somebody who doesn't eat any of these things ever, and you've got a diet that works well for you and you know what gives you your energy and those sorts of things, then you should stick to that rather than saying, oh, I need to start eating these foods that I don't normally eat. And Sue and I are a great example of how some of these foods work for some people and some don't. So Sue can eat and lives on bread. It is great for her energy. It's great for all of her training. For me, bread is, I may as well just stick it on. It makes me get fat. It makes me go slow. It takes my energy away. So bread doesn't work for me. It does work for Sue. And for each one of us over time, we get to learn which ones of these things really help. And then, of course, we've got the things.
And we've got the vegetarian people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, so you stick to the diet that is working for you. So things like beans and potatoes are often
That's right,
vegetarians are very good. So again, it's what works for you.
Yes.
So you want to just comment on the avoids?
On the avoid foods, as well as the fried foods, we're starting to get, while some of them might be quite carbohydrate based, the fat content in them is not so good for trying to carbohydrate load. You want to try and keep the foods quite simple and in their simplest form when cooked. So once you start getting into fried food, you're getting into heavier food that's not going to be well digested. It's going to be harder to digest and not give you as efficient energy. Cakes, now we've got them in the on the avoid side, but again, some people do actually like to have a treat of a cake or a piece of sweet food of some description, and that's where muffins perhaps come in as well. But again, it's not overloading with them, and be very cautious if you are having them that you don't just take the sweet options without taking some of the more substantial foods. Be very careful with dairy as well. Sometimes dairy close to the race day can upset your stomach, as well as creating mucus and making it difficult to breathe for some people as well. Also avoid having probably too much chocolate. I know that's something that a lot of people do like to just have as a sweet treat. But again, we're trying to give the most efficient form of fuel to our bodies so that we're in the best state possible. And that also includes trying to avoid excessive caffeine. Like your occasional cup of coffee is fine, but not too much. And the same goes with alcohol. If it really works for you to have a small glass of wine, maybe that's still okay, but we don't want to go into excessive amounts. Also, to avoid soft drink. It can be very dehydrating, very high in sugar, but again, empty calories. It's not a good carbohydrate loading food. Avoid new foods, spicy, extra spicy food. I'm going to be careful with that. Extra spicy food or something that you haven't eaten before that might upset your stomach. And the last one, to be very careful with foods that do dehydrate you and take away. And a lot of fried foods come up into that category as well.
Okay. Check the weather again, because it can impact on the way you're going to dress and those sorts of things. So just keep an eye out for that. Also impacts on what you're going to take with you to the race start. So got a tip on that in a minute. For those people who shave, wax, or whatever, their legs or anything else, this is the time to do it. Makes you go faster, apparently. Not that I've done it.
Yes, we saw all the Ironmen go past on the weekend. They were all ready to run.
So it's a good one for a rest day for most people. Again,
and the shiny legs coming out.
Yes, exactly.
And
the shiny legs.
You want to be having about 65% of your diet in carbohydrate. That's, again, for most people. If you're somebody who doesn't eat all those things and you've got a diet that's working for you, then stick to that. But for most of us, this is about the where it is. It's not overeating, it's just changing the composition, not trying new things. So it's 2 days to go.
It's 2 days to go. This is the night that we want to get the best night's sleep we possibly can. This is the big snooze day. This is the day that we really try and chill out, early to bed, get the best sleep we can, and try and plan for a restful night. It's not a night to go out partying and staying out late. It's a night for tucking in early.
Yeah, so if you can, get to bed a little bit earlier and try not to get up. If you can, sleep in a little bit, or at least, just get a good start. So this is the night to get to sleep before the nerves really kick in the night, next night.
And this is the night. Sorry, I was just going to say, and that is the night that's actually a little bit more important, because it's a pre-race anxiety that people have the night before, so they find sleep difficult the night before. So it's normally the night before the night before. It's the best night to have a really good sleep.
Yes, definitely. And if you can not set that alarm, if you really can sleep in a little bit in the morning, even better.
And sleep a bit longer, that's right, yeah.
It's a day to go to the expo and the events. Go and not just pick up your race number, but there's lots of wonderful events, and we're doing a workshop, and I think we'll ask Karen to talk a little bit about more of that at the end. So it's a good day to get to the expo. And after you've got to the expo, then you want to check that you've got all the things you need. So you've got your race number, you've got your clothing and your shoes, you've got it all there, and it's all good to go. There's nothing worse than getting home from the expo or getting up on race morning and realising, hang on, I didn't check it yet.
I've forgotten the chip.
Yes.
So
I haven't got the chip.
You want to check that.
But normally, sorry, I was just saying, normally it's a kind of ritual for people before the race to pin up the numbers on their vest and to get out their lucky charm if they have one, or to pack in their energy gels and prepare themselves. And line their clothes up, or the shoes in a line and with the socks inside, and prepare for the race.
We're going to talk about that again in a moment too. And it's also the day for getting your dinner. This is what we call the last supper or the big meal. So this is not the night before, because you don't want to overeat the night before, but the night before, again, it's a good time to get in that meal of pasta or rice or whatever it is, and you don't have to worry that, maybe I just ate a little bit more than I should, because you've got a full day to go, and you're giving it time to convert into the energy you need. So it's a run a short run or a rest day, depending on your program. It's the most important food day. Again, nothing too spicy, nothing new, working around that sort of 65% carbohydrate,
Hydrate.
and you're working on your hydration. The day before, Sue.
The day before. This is the final preparation. So we're into the last 24 hours, and we've really got to take care of ourselves a little bit. And probably the most important meal on this day before is the lunch. We don't want to skip lunch. We want to make sure we have a solid carbohydrate, again, trying to get that 65% or thereabouts percentage of carbohydrate into our lunch, and just making sure that we really do get nutritionally sound, not skip meals on the day before. Also, really important is to try and stay off your feet as much as possible. Quite often we get all very excited with what's going on, and we rush around here and there, and we're not training as much. So we've got quite a lot of energy, and we just find ourselves doing too many tasks. So try and stay off the feet.
And this is the one that Karen was alluding to, is this is where you lay out your gear, you pin the number on your top, so you're not trying to do it in a rush or in the dark on race morning. You know, lots of people
exactly, yeah,
put
and
things
it's
through
probably something that calms your nerves down for you to avoid pre-race anxiety. You know, something that you do out of rituals. You could get it done earlier and don't stress yourself up. On the race day itself, when you wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, I've not pinned, I've got a rush," and what happens if you wake up a little bit too late? And when you're always in a rush to get to the start venue and the race site, you're just going to stress yourself out and not do well for a run.
Of course, if you haven't put your pins on your thing the night before, whilst you've been asleep, your pins might get up and walk away, so that on race morning you can't find them.
You can't guess. Where did I put them? Where did I put them? But the other thing is too, with an early race start, just getting all this done the night before, technically does allow you greater time to worry about other things, and maybe even a little bit more of a sleep in, or less things to do in the morning is a good thing.
And having more time to prep yourself,
definitely.
It's like meditation to yourself and telling yourself you can do it, and you're going to do it. You're going to get your better timing, and that's what's important.
So it's also the day to just fine-tune your transport. So if you're getting a lift with somebody, just to confirm the time. If you're driving yourself, make sure you've got some petrol in the car. There's nothing worse than heading off in a rush and realizing, oh no, I've got to stop and get petrol in my car. So it's just making sure that you've got that. If you've got to catch a train or a bus or something, make sure you've got the right money, or you've got your ticket. All of those things, again, depending on where you're coming from and how you're getting there, you want that all sorted out. And one of our nightmares that we always dream about, hasn't happened to us yet, but set 2 alarms. Just in case one doesn't work.
Yes,
so, that's right.
It did actually happen to me with triathlon, that I only set 1 alarm and slept through it. Yes, I was woken by my parents knocking on the door to take me to the race. But
dear.
It is even 3 alarms. Hey, why not? The more the better. We have been known to do 3.
Yes, you've done all the hard work. You don't want to sleep in.
You don't want to sleep in.
Yeah, but I always have bad dreams about a day before the run. I always have a dream that I wake up way too late for the run and I miss the run. And for that, I wake up almost immediately and get myself ready for a run. It's very odd when you get these dreams that you're going to wake up late. You somehow wake up early on the day before.
So it's also the day to be careful with alcohol and caffeine. We don't have too much.
That's right.
Hydration. So it's, again, people will do it in different ways. Some people love to have a short run the day before a race. Other people swear by having a complete rest. It's a personal choice. If you do run, whatever you do, don't run too fast and don't run too far.
It's also one thing with running the day before. We've been carbohydrate loading, fluid loading for the last couple of days, and you can actually feel quite heavy and uncomfortable when you run. So you don't really want to set yourself a bad feeling. So if you do feel a little bit sluggish or heavy, if you do go for a run the day before, don't take that as an indicator that your training has been bad or that you've done something wrong, that you feel sluggish. It's just the carbohydrate in your body waiting for the marathon the next day.
So on this day before, making sure that you eat a good breakfast and lunch and a light dinner. You don't want to over overfeed yourself on that evening. Your good work's been done in the days leading up to that. And again, slowly just working on that hydration. So it's race day. The big one is finally here. What are we doing here on race day, Sue?
Well, we're setting our alarms, those 2 alarms or 3 alarms, so that we wake up at least 2 hours before the race start. We plan to try and arrive early so that we've got plenty of time and we're not panicked, rushing around trying to get that last toilet stop, check in a bag, get to the start, be where we need to be. So plenty of time. This one may not be applicable, but it might be applicable, we say, staying dry potentially.
Yeah, or some people, again,
Yeah, could feel chilly.
Feel warm or cold. So it's looking after your temperature. And sometimes you might take a garbage bag if it is a cold place, but also if it could be wet or something like that, or you're not quite sure about carrying a jumper. So again, it's just something you're used to doing. It's a good thing to do. If it's something you've never done before, then you might not want to start it on race day for the first time. You want to stick to your plan. You've done all the hard training. You've mapped out what you're going to do. You've prepared for the different scenarios. So today's the day just to implement the plan, and it will get you the result. Today's not the day to be trying new things or throwing the plan out the window.
Yes.
You might meet somebody who says, oh, you got to go do this. Well, if you haven't trained for that, it's not going to work. So stick to your plan is a key part. Drink early. Let's go through the drink stations.
Yes.
Energy, about one of the questions that we had from people, about every 45 minutes is a good guide for taking on some energy. And Sue, I might get you to talk a little bit about some of the things which people can use during the event to fuel themselves.
Well, energy gels are probably the most popular form of fuel on race day or during the event. They can be different brands. Power Bar, I think, is one of the sponsors. They make power gels. There are Goos and other brands as well. And again, hopefully, or should be something that you've practiced leading up to race day. So they are a great form of energy, instant energy. You need to take them with water, so you want to take one coming into a drink station to try and make sure that you do actually wash that down, get it into your system. Another increasingly popular one are chomps, and they're like little jellies or tubes, sort of solid to chew on rather than the gels, which a lot of people can find the texture of the gels quite difficult to swallow, can make them feel sick in the stomach or gag even. So chomps give a nice chew, and that goes for power beans as well. They're little jelly beans that are electrolyte jelly beans, and again they just give that sugar, a little bit of electrolyte, and it's a solid chewing form. For those people that have trouble with glucose and sucrose, going to something like a honey shots is getting into a much purer form and is less likely to upset you. It's something to be worth thinking about. The old banana is a great little source of energy on race day or during the race if you get the opportunity to. Generally well tolerated by the stomach. There's no fat in a banana, so it doesn't really upset the gut. And a lot of people have found energy bars in themselves, like the power bars, breaking off a piece, chewing on that can give them a little boost of energy if they're starting to feel depleted. And of course, other things to consider, the electrolyte drinks and water can also be important parts of your race day fuel. And electrolyte itself, electrolyte drinks, does have some sugar in it, so it will give you some energy. Salt tablets are something that's really worth thinking about if you do sweat excessively. Again, it's something that Andrew and I use on very warm race days, but also something that I wouldn't launch into using if I hadn't practiced with them beforehand. To add into those race day fuels are also orange segments, watermelon pieces, chocolate little bars or pieces of chocolate. We have known potatoes out on the course, snakes and jelly beans and lollies. And in emergencies, things like Coca-Cola or potato crisps, even ginger tablets if your stomach's upset, but they're less likely to be encountered out on the course.
So if you haven't been training with your form of energy, then you you can still do that on your run this weekend. Maybe have a gel or something before you leave for your run and after about 20-30 minutes, so that you get to have two and you're just practicing that. It is important I think, to practice, and there's a list of things that after this race, for future ones, you might want to consider if you're not happy with what's currently working for you. Don't panic. Stick to the plan, one foot after the other. You'll get there much quicker than you realise, and so just don't panic. There's just lots of us all going in the same direction. Just keep moving towards the target and you'll be there. As we said, keep moving.
Yep, it doesn't matter how fast or how slow. One step after the other, you are getting closer to the finish and you will ultimately get there.
And on that note, that covered all the tips that we had, plus the questions that people had submitted. And we've got just a couple of tips for recovery. But before we do that, if anybody has any other questions that they'd like covered as their final preparation, just put them into the little box. And Karen, I might ask you to just make a few comments. Anything you'd like to add at this point?
Do you want me to say something about the pre-event programs?
That would be lovely.
So I was just going to say something about the pre-event program. Now we're going to have a special guest with us, Miss Catherine Switzer. She is the first woman to officially run Boston Marathon, and in 1967, women were not allowed to run marathons until she came along and she signed up in Boston and ran. Where she was spotted, because Boston Marathon was exclusively for men at that time, and that didn't go well with the race director, who decided to come out and pushed her aside from running. But she had her supporters, and that helped her finish the run, so she was officially one of the first, she's the first woman to finish Boston Marathon. And because of that, she helped lobby and champion rights for women to run in marathons. And in 1972, 6 women were finally allowed to run in Boston Marathon. And here we are. In 2013, we are here to celebrate the 40th year for women being allowed to run in marathon. So Malaysian Women Marathon is an event that will celebrate this 40th year, and we have invited Miss Catherine Switzer to come and give inspirational talk. She will be with us to do a women's dialogue session as well, and so with Sue and Andrew, they will be with us, and we will have together a discussional topic where we will end up having a mission that will take this mission and move forward and see how women will be in running, and hopefully to adopt it in Malaysia and get more women in Malaysia and maybe in Asia and Australasia to run the marathon. So we are hoping this pre-event program will get will give more inspiration, and especially for people who wants to start to appreciate running and love the joy of running. And that's all. We would like to encourage people to come for the pre-event program on 5th and the 6th. Do join us. We have workshop from Sue and Andrew as well. And we have got other interesting programs. We've got a little fashion show as well, just for the ladies.
Thanks, Karen. That's great. Now, we've got a couple of questions. First one for you is, does iCity provide accommodation for those runners who are sort of not from local? So are the hotels near iCity for people to stay at?
There are four very nice, they call inns. I won't call them hotel. It's just like a bed and breakfast kind of setup. One's called Hotel the Art. If you can click on hoteltheart.com.my, they are actually quite a fancy art decor kind of hotel. So that's quite a nice one. Do check that out. There's one more called Boutique iCity Hotel, or it's the iCityBoutiqueHotel.com.my as well. and check out that's one that's exactly in ICT itself. We've got the Concord, we've got the Tree House Boutique Hotel as well, and that's just within a 1 kilometer radius from ICT.
Thanks, Karen. That's great. And I think we'll put links to those hotels on the Facebook page, so people.
It is on a Facebook page, actually. Yes.
It's there already. Okay, great.
It is on a Facebook page, and there's a little note on accommodation. If you can scroll down the notes in the Facebook, it's probably note number 3.
Perfect. So
With
there you go,
links.
folks. That's already there. Now, next question is, do we have another webinar next week? Because it is so helpful, and what topics will you be discussing? So I can just, what a wonderful question. Here we are. Next week is, the title is Going the Distance and Race Week Questions. So we're going to revisit a little bit some of those last minute items. We're going to focus in on the questions which people post or send us, post on Facebook or send through the next week. So if you've got any questions that come up through the week, just post those onto the Facebook page, or when you enroll for register for the webinar. And of course you can always ask the questions during the webinar like we're doing now. And then the other aspect of this webinar next week is we're going to be talking about some of those sort of mental toughness tricks, the things we can do to keep going when we want to give up, the things we can do to pass the time, the things we can do to encourage ourselves and encourage others, the things we might do to, if we've got a blister on the race day, or some of those little challenges that come up. So we're going to be talking about the last final minute preparation type aspects. And then we do have the week after, not the night after, or not a few days, but the week after that.
On Tuesday, April the 16th.
There'll be another webinar for people to ask questions about what happened, how they can improve and learn and do that sort of thing. The other question we've got here is, will the tips here be sent out to us as a copy? There will be a recording of this, and we'll also put together just a brief document with the point-by-point tips, which again will be available to everybody who's here. And if you've got friends, if you want to watch the webinar again, or if you want to watch it again, or you've got friends who want to watch it, you'll be able to see that link. That will be there by probably, if not tomorrow, the next day. And I think that's the questions, as we're going to get Sue to just give us a couple of recovery tips, again, just to start thinking about after the race, so how we're going to prepare. So Sue, take us through.
Well, I think the most important thing is we finished the race and we need to get straight into rehydration and putting some nutrition back in our bodies after depleting those during the marathon. So rehydration, there'll be drinks at the finish, but then also keeping up your fluid through the rest of the day. Also, nutrition factor, we want to try and get some carbohydrate again. I know it's not perhaps the thing that first comes to mind, but our muscles need some more energy. And also a little bit of protein to help rebuild the muscles that we've worked hard with.
And me, I'm a Coca-Cola.
Sue and Andrew, can I just say something? I'm just going to get everybody excited, because for the first time in a run, the water that we're going to give is an oxygenated water. So it's an oxygen water that we're giving all the runs in all our water stops. Just the best for the women.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, that's going to be
exactly.
Yeah.
We're just going to let it. Well, you are the first to know, and everybody's listening here will be the first to know. We're just going to have oxygen water for all our water stops.
Well, that's got to be a help.
That's wonderful.
And it's sponsored by Biogenics. Definitely. Let's see how it re-energizes us when we run throughout 42 kilometers.
Definitely. Oh, well, tip 2. Moving on, compression tights. Now, these are something that are going to help our muscles recover, and we often stay or get into compression tights and actually wear them through the evening and overnight to sleep in them. They definitely have proven in a lot of research to improve recovery of muscles and minimize injury. So very much recommend that. getting into some ice or some cold water for your legs to try and take down the swelling, some of the bruising. If you've got any muscle strains, it's going to help stop the bleeding within the muscles and just really help your recovery. Good to keep moving. Resting is great, but walking is a nice way of just easing out your muscles and stopping them from seizing up and locking up a little bit. So nice walking, gentle walking, not power walking or race walking, but just to ease your body.
And I've always found out that if you sit too long after a long run or after a race, and the longer you sit, the more lactic acid builds up, and you get a tight feeling in your calves after that. So it's best to walk a little bit, take a longer walk, not sit down too often.
Yeah. And the last one, which is often underestimated by people, and this is the one that I've seen, and Sue have seen lots of people get into trouble over, is that you've trained for many, many months, you put all of this hard work in, you've been really good with the food you've eating, you've done incredible effort, you've run your first race, or you've done something that you've never done before, and then for the first day or two afterwards, wow, this is fantastic, you're on this real high, and then life moves on and people go back to work and you go back to family and whatever it might be, and it's like, oh, what's going to happen next? And so if we're not thinking about our next goal, we can sort of get into a real sort of down,
down feeling, just sad state.
Bit of an empty feel. So
it's called a withdrawal syndrome state.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the time to think about your next goal. And it doesn't have to be a running goal. It could be something with family or something with work or study. But it's good to then say, okay, I've had a bit of a celebration. I've just reminded myself, or discovered in some cases, how wonderful I can be and how I can really achieve anything I set my mind to. So now's a good time to set your mind to something new and exciting, your next goal, and that helps pass the withdrawal, move it on, and we hope it's another running goal, but it could be not just a running goal, but other goals as well.
It could be another physical sport or something else.
And on that note, that brings us to the end. So thanks everybody for coming along. We've gone a couple of minutes over. The recording will be there, and thank you very much to everybody through the week for the questions and tonight for the questions. We hope that's been helpful. Again, re-emphasising, if you've got questions for next week or in the meantime that you need answered that we can help with, we'd love to hear from you and do our best. So Karen, we'll hand to you for just the final race director's word and anything you might want to mention here with the sponsors.
So I'm just going to say thank you to both of you, Sue and Andrew, and to all the runners. If you have enjoyed this webinar, do come on the 5th and on the 6th. The program is for a partner running workshop, and Sue and Andrew will be here with us live. We'll see them in live form, and come and join us, because both Sue and Andrew are an inspirational couple, and they will be running with us on the 7th. Catch them running and be inspired. They will take you better times and enjoy your run on the day itself.
Lovely. Thanks so much, Karen. That's we're all getting excited. It's almost into the last 10 days. We're into that time that we're just focused on race day now, getting closer.
Okay, good night, folks, and thank you very much. All the best for the rest of your training. We hope to see you next week, and if we don't see you on the webinar, we'll
see you in live person.
See you at the running.
That's
Thanks
right.
Karen.
See you. Can't wait for you guys to be here. Bye. Good night.
Good night, everybody.